Okay, so as you know, panels don't really work very well. Panels tend to be where like everyone just agrees with someone else. And instead, we tend to do these things we call chain reaction panels, where one person interviews the next person for a series of short conversations. And we're going to do one now featuring four panelists who are all part of the Dr. Roberta Bondar Career Development Program. So, Jacqueline, I'm excited to kick off our first of several chain reaction panels. Great topic to have here.
So today, Alistair, we're going to look at how the best leaders find and grow their successors. That is so important for business continuity. So let's go ahead and kick things off with Shared Services Canada's very own EVP, Sarah Paquette, and Jasmine Shaw, release train engineer on the Maritime Helicopter Project, General Dynamics Mission Systems Canada. Welcome to the screen, ladies.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline, and thank you, Alistair. I'm so happy to be here again for a chain reaction panel. I haven't done panel, Alistair, since I started doing those reaction panel because I think they are so more dynamic. So today we'll start by showcasing ladies at all levels that are really leaders in supporting others. So they are all amazing, and we'll start right away with Jasmine. So Jasmine, you're an engineer, you're passionate about STEM. What does it mean for you to be an emerging leader?
Thank you, Sarah. So I just wanted to begin by saying I'm really excited to be on this panel today and participate with yourself and other women that I admire. So being an emerging young leader, or even a leader for that matter, is really a process of growth. And it's not a fixed point in time. You did not simply become a leader and then stop leading or stop growing. So to me, being an emerging leader specifically is the process of continually discovering how you can positively impact the lives of other people. And there are a few people that I wanted to recognize that I consider to be emerging leaders that I really admire, particularly in the STEM space. So one of them is Vanessa Raquel, who is the founder of ENGIqueers. Another is Janelle Hines, the founder of Helping Hands and Forbes 30 Under 30. And of course, my fellow cohort members in the Dr. Roberta Career Development Program. So in my current role, as you mentioned, at General Dynamics Mission Systems Canada, I'm responsible for redesigning my program's engineering infrastructure to basically support a 20-year in-service support contract. And this involves overseeing concurrent projects related to engineering development, planning, processes, tools, basically everything that you need to run an engineering program. And this opportunity came about really because I created it for myself and I went after an opportunity that had high impact on other people. So it started at an all-hands meeting in 2018, where I met the program manager of the in-service support phase of the contract. And I didn't really know anything about what a service contract was. I was working on the acquisition and delivery side, actually building systems. So this PM flew into Ottawa from Halifax and shared some of the challenges that that program was facing. And I went up to him and just asked how I can get involved. How could I be a part of building this program to be successful for the future? So a few months later, I actually ended up switching over to that program, and reflecting on that kind of journey, what I realized is that my intuition leads me towards impact. And I think that's really common among leaders, is that they know what opportunities will create impact for other people, and then they go towards that. And in this case, the impact is really on my team, being able to help them have a better quality of work at their workplace, and also having an impact on the end user and how they use our systems and our product, which is really critical to what I do.
Thank you, Jasmine. Talking about impact, you're also a member of the Diversity Committee, and you're a member because you want to change the work environment. You really want to support your unrepresented colleagues. So what advice do you have for emerging leaders?
Definitely. So I'll quickly share kind of how I became involved in the I&D space and more broadly within my community now. So I really became acutely aware of the fact that I was a female engineer, but what I realized was a bit unconventional compared to what some other female engineers experience, is that my experiences have been really positive. I have not experienced discrimination or harassment for being a woman in this field. And that was contradictory to what some of my peers and my friends were experiencing. So as someone who's been working in engineering for over 4 years now, I've had a really good experience. And I learned that that's just simply not the case for a lot of other women in underrepresented groups. So I kind of exist in a strange bubble where I haven't experienced some of these things, so I can't directly relate, but I still feel so strongly about it because I still relate with that female engineering community. So I decided that I wanted to put energy towards improving the experiences of my colleagues. And what I realized is that when you work with a committee, you have a lot more leverage than as an individual, and you can really enact a lot more systemic change than you can as an individual. So in terms of what I've learned so far as an ambassador for diversity in STEM, I have 3 tips of advice for future and current leaders. So first is to recognize that you already have what it takes. Job titles do not make people a leader. If you have a desire to create a positive impact in your community and you're converting that desire into action, then you're already leading. So don't wait to be invited to the table. Set up a meeting with an executive at your company and share your vision of change with them. Second is a pragmatic tip, which is to be very clear what problems you want to solve in the diversity and inclusion space. I personally find myself down rabbit holes sometimes that lead me to the conclusion along the lines of, well, we just need to rebuild the entire company from scratch. Let's just restart everything, which is not a valid proposition for any organization. So focus on incremental small changes, whether it's something like changing your hiring practices, reviewing the language in your job postings to be gender neutral. Small things like that will help you build momentum in this space and also demonstrate the value of this work to people within the company. And once you've kind of built that reputation that, yes, this is not only important work to be done, but it also adds value to the company, then it's a little bit easier to go after bigger projects and ask for some funding or resources to kind of go after to fry the bigger fish. And the last tip that I have for emerging leaders working in this space is to really surround yourself with as many different perspectives as possible. So doing diversity, inclusion, belonging work, it really forces you to constantly learn and adjust, which I personally believe you can only do if you have people around you who challenge you and force you to grow. And that comes by being surrounded by people who are different from you. So I'll end with a quote, which is, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So make sure to choose those people wisely.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Over to you, Jasmine.
Okay. So next up, we have Lisa Carroll, the public sector lead at Microsoft and the private sector champion for the Dr. Roberta Bondar Career Development Program. So Lisa, you have worked in the tech space for over 20 years with some of the world's most notable organizations. Can you share some of the strategies that organizations should implement in order to identify, groom, and retain talent of emerging leaders?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jasmine, and thanks, everyone. Very excited to be here again. I think is this four years? Forward 50 in Ottawa, which is very exciting, and love to see the global reach. Jasmine, I'll share, unfortunately, I'm probably closer to that 30-year mark versus the 20-year mark in the IT industry right now. So lots of experience, I think, behind me. So to your question, attracting, retaining, developing emerging leaders is absolutely a critical imperative for all leaders right now. Talent is the key differentiator. And certainly we at Microsoft, we spent a fair amount of time focusing on this, particularly in this unprecedented time of COVID. I don't know about you, how many people have been doing recruiting, onboarding, encouraging deep engagement, looking at productivity, and balancing the health and wellness of our teams at this point in time. So finding that leadership right now is really an art form at the moment, and takes purposeful intention as leaders. I'm a firm believer that if you don't set targets, plan for it, measure it, it doesn't get done. So I think my big theme here around developing emerging leaders is about intention. So some of the key strategies organizations can consider, I think if you look at the identify emerging leaders piece, that really starts back in recruiting. And Jasmine, you mentioned that a little bit as well. Looking at job descriptions, making sure that the words will attract a real great and broad talent pool of emerging leaders, and really tap into that passion for people to want to apply to your organization. Being creative and intentional on where you recruit as well. And I think that creative piece is big. You're going to meet Joanne shortly, who is the leader at WCT. So we actually engage in their female IT job board to expand our leadership capture and attraction. As well, recently, we participated in Be Future, which is Canada's largest Black tech tech talent event that occurred 2 weeks ago. So I think that real creativity around where do you capture, how do you encourage, how do you attract, and then looking at the slate of candidates, making sure that it's a diverse slate, broad emerging talent, and that you've got the diversity of mindset of the panelists. So when you're interviewing and attracting, that you're looking at the mindset and the future potential, not just today's technical capabilities. Then I think once you have those great emerging leaders in your organization, you have to take care of them and you have to develop them throughout their career. And I think the way we do it in Microsoft is a couple of ways. One is we're a big learn-it-all organization as opposed to a know-it-all organization, which means we're constantly providing leadership development, training for our teams, really looking at growth mindset, purpose, values, and developing those leadership attributes for the future. And then as a leadership team, it's about intent, making sure that we have the list of those emerging leaders. Where are they in their career? How are we really developing deep succession plans, co-developing their career paths with them, giving them visibility to the leadership, and they're always top of mind. So as a leadership team at Microsoft, we spend a good 4 to 5 hours at least every month talking about this very intentionally to make sure that we're progressing. And then I'd say last but not least, have a great environment, right? It's about having fun. It's about being purposeful, having vision, being engaged, balanced with good rewards for our great emerging talent.
Absolutely. And along the lines of intent and action, you're also the co-chair of Tech Nation Canada's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, where you are actively inspiring women to work and become emerging leaders in the tech space. So what advice do you have specifically for female leaders now to ensure that they are fully participating and engaged at each stage of their career in STEM?
That's a great question, Jasmine. I think you touched on a few of them that I might repeat here. So I think certainly I feel very fortunate being a woman in the tech industry and what I've achieved in my career. But I will say I didn't do it by myself, right? I had lots of supporters, I had lots of coaches, lots of allies to help me develop along the way. And I think as I look at, like many of us in the tech, and I think I heard Alistair say, everyone in public service is in the tech industry today, which is true. The often walk into a room and you're the only female in the room. And years ago, it was really quick to count the number of women in the room, but it's starting to take a little longer, which is awesome. So we're trending in the right direction, but nowhere near where we need to be. I think in a leadership stage of our career, some of the things we can do, certainly we realize that diversity inclusion is a critical business strategy. All of us in the tech and digital world, making sure that inclusion is baked into our technology and our projects as we automate business processes is a key responsibility. And it's a critical business success factor as well. Lots of research saying that sustainable, profitable organizations are really diverse organizations. Across our career, I'd say a few things. One, have confidence and stretch yourself like Jasmine did for this engineering role, which is awesome. Be your own advocate. Voice your opinion, negotiate your value, and recognize your value. Develop advocates. Make sure that you have people who are talking about you, promoting you, supporting you through your career network. And then last but not least, advocate for others. Be the one who pays back. Make sure that people's diverse voices around the table share your learnings and that they're heard and they're supported through career.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Lisa.
Good. Thank you. So Jasmine, thank you very much for that chat. And I think I have the pleasure of inviting Joanne Stanley to join us now. So Joanne Stanley is the Executive Director of Women in Communications and Technology, and which is the organization that's responsible for this awesome 2020 Dr. Roberta Bondar Career Development Program for Women in STEM.
Hi. Yeah, my God. Thanks.
So Joanne, my friend, you are a fantastic example of a successful woman in leadership in digital industry. Your unwavering commitment and contribution to women in digital industries for over 30 years, like me, has paved the way for so many of us. Looking back, can you share with us, what are some of your success stories from your career in advancing D&I in the tech industry?
Thanks for the compliment, Lisa. I think my big successes really started when I did become a proactive advocate for diversity and inclusion. First, when I joined the Canadian Advanced Technology Alliance, CATA. There I co-founded CanWit. And then I started or went to WCT as the executive director 7 years ago. Before that, I had a long and very fulfilling career at both Bell Canada and the Ontario Centres of Excellence. There I was pretty busy trying to navigate a mainly male-dominated workplace, figure out what the advancement path was and how to best fit in. But when I was there, I was really lucky to have some champions and sponsors who helped me propel the advancement path and pushed me forward and vouched for me. Now at WCT, one of our success stories, and I'm going to talk about 2 or 3 of them, is the Protégé Project. That's a program we started in 2014, which pairs women who are ready to move into the executive ranks with an executive sponsor or a champion who will help propel them into the C-suite. We've had several success stories, women who have actually become a CEO or co-CEO as a result of the influence and support of their executive champion through the Protégé Project. Another huge success story for WCT is our mentorship program. We've been running this mentorship program for close to 20 years, and it's a unique one-on-one national cross-sector, cross-company mentorship program, which is rather unusual. We've had, since I've been there, at least 500 women have been through the program, and many have said that it's changed their life. Being as well, just to note, being a mentor, and we're happy to invite anyone to come and be a mentor, it can be as rewarding, even more so than being a mentee. Course continues to be the sponsor for that program, and it is the longest running one-on-one cross-sector mentorship program in Canada. We offer mentorship as a key strategy and for women to employ in their career path and advancement. And in WCT, through our numerous chapters, we have all sorts of mentorship, and they're all good, whether it's peer-to-peer mentorship, mentorship circles, group mentorship. I would encourage anyone to take advantage of those programs. Lastly, our Dr. Roberta Bondar program, which is one of the reasons we're here today. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Microsoft, for being a sponsor. Also, the support of shared services this year. And this is a program we did start a few years ago, I think in 2016, and with the support of the federal government. So great accolades and kudos to the public sector. At that time, it was ISED who were the champions from a public sector perspective. And the Bondar program, and you've heard from one participant, Jasmine, is one of our stars, is a form of peer-to-peer mentorship. It's also an internship whereby women from private and public sector in the early years of their STEM career, STEM being science, technology, engineering, and math. And they are paired together for a period of time where they meet public and private sector leaders and learn about the different policies and programs that impact and make up the innovation sector in Canada. The Bondar program is fashioned on another similar program we call the Jean Sauvé program, which is for women in policy, regulatory, legal, in the telecom and broadcast sectors. So those are probably the main success stories, certainly out of a WCT, I'd like to highlight.
Awesome. And I'm a very big partner, certainly, of WCT and the reach and impact you have for women in STEM. That's awesome. We've got 1 minute left, Joanne. Very quickly, what's your advice to senior leaders today to ensure the right employees in the right role at the right time?
Okay. People in power shape our culture, and those at the table are the ones who are making decisions. Without women equally represented, we don't hear that perspective. So probably the biggest advice I would give to other women leaders is be bold, take chances, and build an inclusive and diverse workforce, bring not only women, but women of color, women of different nationalities, women of different ethnic origins to the table, because without those perspectives, you do not hear either your customer's point of view or the point of view of your employee body. So that would be my single biggest piece of advice I'll give.
Perfect. Thank you for the chat, Joanne. Love the recommendations, and I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, and it's my privilege to introduce or reintroduce Sarah Paquette. And Sarah is the executive vice president of Human Services. And Sarah is one of our key executive champion for the Dr. Roberta Bondar. And Sarah, if you're there, I'm going to ask you your first question. Sarah, you've been a very passionate advocate for women and diversity in the workplace. And in your champion role for women, what are your key lessons and experiences in identifying, grooming, and retaining the talent of emerging leaders?
Thank you, Joanne. When I joined Shared Services Canada, I knew I was joining an only male management table. I always knew I was welcome and they were going to support me. But it was not enough. It was not enough for me to walk in the corridors and being thanked by women just to be there. Because they had one woman as at the management table, they now had wish that one day it may be them. So I just realized it was not enough and I needed to do something. So when you start talking about it, people start seeing the flaws in your own system. So women were coming to me sharing their stories. So I needed to create more space for them to share their stories and more space for men to see through their biases, to act on it and get to action. So I started to be visible, started to talk about it, and started to use my influence to attract more women to my organization. But attracting was not enough. I also needed to retain them. So how do you retain them? You create opportunity for coaching, for mentoring, for sponsoring. People often forget sponsoring is very important. It's just not enough to do good work. If people don't see you, don't see your potential, they won't think of you for the next position. So through all kinds of activities, we brought women together and we brought men into the room to have those discussions. So the Roberta Bondar is a fantastic program because it gives them learning, but also a support group and networking opportunity inside and outside the government, the private sector, the nonprofit, the academia. But we also did the panel pledge, so challenging women to speak up at conferences like Jasmine did today, but for men, not to go to those conferences or join those panels that are not diverse. And we're also working on a program for men as allies. A lot of men came to me and asked, what can I do to be an ally? They don't have the tools. They don't see those biases. They don't realize that they will interrupt women 3 times more than men. So when you talk with them about it, when you give them the tools, they start seeing all those biases in the system that shouldn't be there, and then they join you. So we put word into action. We joined forces with University of Ottawa, Women in Tech World, IBM, and we're building that program that all the men will have access to learn and become better allies.
Neat. What advice do you have for the emerging female leaders to improve their participation in each key stage of their career? Oh, big question. Take it away, Sarah.
Yeah, I think I will tell them, be a participant. You need to be a participant every stage of your career. You're invited to a meeting, you sit at the table. Don't sit at the back. You have an opinion, you share your opinion. A man is interrupting you, you stick to your course, you share your opinion. There's follow-up activities after the meeting, raise your hand, take the opportunity, get out of your comfort zone, trust yourself, and then it will give you the opportunity to report back, be visible, and show your potential. Opportunity comes in all kinds of sorts. There's competition, so apply. Men apply when they are 45% ready. Women applies when they are 100% ready. Okay? No. Embrace the 45%, apply, trust yourself, push yourself. Don't let people tell you what your career is going to be. You decide, you are in the driver's seat. And when you've done all that, then you need to be a champion for others. You need to inspire others, you need to mentor and coach, because they need to see you as a strong woman, to want to be you, to see the possibility of being you. And this is how you're going to encourage others to join the force, and we will have more and more women in STEM. We have about 25% of the women in this field right now. We need more. And if we need more, we're part of this attraction, but we need to be part of their retention and create that space for the women to be successful and to be comfortable in their role, comfortable in their opinion, comfortable to share and to support others. So thank you very much, Joanne. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Jasmine, for joining me today. I think we have all different backgrounds. We all took up different challenges, and we're all together because we really believe in the cause. So thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your candid stories, to be vulnerable about what works and what doesn't, and what we need to do more, and how all together we can support others to join the action. So this is what I would like to leave all of you today. It's a call to action, to encourage women to join the STEAM field, to attract them, to retain them, to support them, and make all of them champions to inspire others.
Sarah, thank you to you and to all the panelists for such a great session. You know, when I heard Jasmine talk about emerging leaders continue to discover, I thought that is so powerful and true, because there's so much to always learn. And also, I loved it. I have an HR background, and I liked when Lisa mentioned about being creative and intentional when recruiting, and how the importance of having diversity is more than just the color of our skin, but it's also diversity of mindset. And as you mentioned too, Sarah, about being bold, trusting yourselves and showing our potential. And really resonated the talk about champions and sponsors and mentors. This has just been great. It's an exciting session. I can't thank you all enough. This is just awesome. And right now I'm going to ask Alistair to join us back on the screen, and we'll go to our next stage. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, everyone. And thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jacqueline. We want to bring Lisa back just quickly, because with the magic of virtual events, we can just drag someone back out on stage. I know you had a question for Lisa. So Lisa, come join us, take me off, and you two can have a quick chat, and then we'll get to our next speaker.
Okay, I've got a great question for you, Lisa. You mentioned it. It's like, what changes are you incorporating in your hiring practices to ensure that you're able to capture diversity on multiple levels, like including mindset? Because I mean, that's the challenge, right? And we have our old hiring practices of how we do it, but how do we step up our game that we can capture that?
Oh, I think that's a fantastic question. So I'll mention the intention, right? Set targets, measure it, intentfully work towards it, and see how you're progressing. And I'll say, as a company, we've actually just published publicly our diversity and inclusion report around our hiring practices globally, and we do that on an annual basis. Not perfect, continuous improvement, but very, very transparent to the marketplace, to ourselves, and to our people around how we're intentfully progressing towards it. One other example I'll share, which I love, people on the autistic spectrum, on the autism spectrum, they interview in a very different way, but the talent they have to bring to a tech company like us is fantastic. So we've actually redesigned our entire recruiting practice for people on the spectrum. And it is less a formal interview panel slate. It's come in and work with us for a week. Let's get to know you. Let's get your hands dirty. Let's learn you the way you best learn and assess. So I think that's a phenomenal example of how we've got to be creative.
That is awesome. That is so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you,
All
everyone.
right. And thanks always for being such a great supporter for this, Lisa.